Man, the ACC just got bailed out by one program that's currently suing them and another that's a first-year member making zero TV revenue.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to Dabo Sweeney, to whom I owe a few apologies. And shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel because new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Have with me, I'm Alex Donno from Locked On Canes. As always, Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. And we got our dude, Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles. We will talk about FSU's transfer strategy. You know, how do you turn 2-10 back into something a little bit more palatable? We know Money Mike's going to be heavily invested in the transfer portal this offseason. We're going to talk about continuing momentum for Bill Belichick to North Carolina. Still doesn't feel real saying that. But Kenton and Brian, let's open up with this college football playoff. A lot of feathers were ruffled on Sunday when SMU, despite losing in the conference championship game against Clemson. Shout out to Clemson. Again, for the Clemson fans who are here because they want to hate on me and Kenton for doubting them, that's fine. You guys earned this victory lap. Shout out to Dabo and Clemson and Klubnik and everyone for winning that game. SMU still gets the nod. In my opinion, they absolutely should have still gotten the nod. But Kenton, your take on Alabama, because there's been a lot of complaining in Tuscaloosa and in the SEC circles about Alabama not sneaking in.
Well, I don't give a damn if there's a herd of Alabama, Tide fans, if there's a parade of elephants coming from Tuscaloosa to Raleigh, if there's every single elephant you can find on every safari in the land coming for us to tell us how wrong we are. I don't give a piss about the Tide if you sit here and lose to Oklahoma by 21 points. Less than a month before the playoff committee selects. What are we supposed to do then? What are we supposed to do? You know, I knew I would be getting a call because my grandmother listens to this show. Shout out to her.
So sorry, Grandma. Grandma gifts.
She called me after the game or after the selection committee, and she said, "Grandson, you the reason my Tide ain't making. The committee heard you talk about my boys." And I said, listen, if I was at that pay grade, we'd all be in penthouses, Grandma. I'm sorry. But more importantly than that, what kept them out was losing the way they did. And if anything, first of all, shout out to Clemson for getting into the playoff via winning the conference. SMU, way to make it a competitive game and get 2 games in there. If anything, I'm looking up and saying, why the hell is Miami not in? Why do we not have 3? If anything, because some of these teams or some of these arguments that are being made, the exact same arguments can be made for Miami. And for some reason, everybody keeps saying, well, Miami just don't blow a 21-point lead. Well, which one do y'all think is a harder bargain? Not blowing a 21-point lead or not losing to 21 to a team that, had they not beat you, wouldn't be bowl eligible? Yeah. Oh, come on, man. So, again, I look at this playoff committee, and I would say they got it mostly right. Again, I don't know why Texas is hosting because who have they beaten all year? And as much as people crap on Notre Dame and what they did this year, last time I checked, they went down to Aggie Land and walked out victorious. So, you know, if the Aggies are a good win for Texas, they also got to be a good win for Notre Dame, or they're nothing for both. You know, so I look at this and I'm like, Ward and company, and not Cam Ward, I believe it's Ward Manuel and company on the committee. Right. They kind of
Ward Manuel.
They did what they wanted to do, how they wanted to do it. They justified by hook and crook here and there to get certain teams in and out. But I'm just so glad that we don't have to sit up here and pretend. Because, again, the SEC and hypotheticals, let me tell you something. This iteration of Bama, they destroyed the 85 Bears. No shot. The Bears got no shot. Sellers and company down in Columbia, the Detroit Lions right now, they'd be devastated. Dan Campbell wouldn't know what to do with those boys. Oh, don't get me started on the mighty Missouri Tigers and what they would do to everybody in the country.
Oh.
You know, don't get me started, because anybody that goes in the SEC country that's not SEC, they can't win, even though Texas A&M won 10 their first year there. Texas messing around and is in the conference championship their first year there. OU upset the Bama team that's been the king of the hill for how many years there. Again, and I believe Missouri won 10 games their first couple years in the SEC as well. So everybody comes in and has all this success off the bat, but they're just a different breed, because again, hypothetically, they getting it done, and hypothetically, if I was to take Megan Stallion on the dead, I'm gonna take her home and seal the deal, hypothetically, of course, if it happens, but I want the benefit of the doubt that the SEC gets.
Well, and Brian, I felt like when the ACC championship game was going on, the committee, I'm sure they were salivating over, because it looked like it was going to be a Clemson blowout. Like, it was looking like Clemson was going to roll them over, and the committee was all ready to pencil in Alabama. But at SMU, I thought they saved themselves by nearly pulling off the comeback. Shout out to Clemson for a dramatic final 16 seconds in the dub. But SMU, obviously, they didn't win the game, but I thought they saved their own butts by making it so close down the stretch.
To be honest with you, I thought SMU was done. I mean, what was it at one point, 24 to 7? I mean, they were down 17 points going to the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That fourth quarter, man, they were on fire. And they ran that drill at the end offensively to a T. Now, the kickoff thing, that's a whole other animal. But
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think Kenton could have done a better job with that as the kickoff guy. And it was bad. But their offense is legit. And if Penn State screws around, they'll get beat. SMU is not a fun team to play. Ask a bunch of teams that got beat by them this year. So I think they deserve to be in because of how they performed. They're an exciting brand of football. And as Kenton said, they didn't lose by 21 points to Oklahoma, who, by the way, I was watching some of that game when it happened. Oklahoma, without any talent at receiver because they're all hurt and quarterbacks that can't throw, had 205 yards rushing. Everybody in the stadium knew it was going to be a running play, every play, and Alabama couldn't stop it against a team that shouldn't have, as Kent noted, been bowl eligible. Leave it to the committee to screw you, there's a chance you'll get screwed. And in this case, I really don't think they did, but they didn't beat the teams they should. And their out-of-conference schedule was garbage too. 3 mediocre teams, FCS, whatever, plus Wisconsin, who finished 5-7. So Alabama has nobody but themselves to blame.
But Brian, that can't make sense. Hold on, Donno, because I'm confused. Everybody keeps saying Bama has no incentive to schedule tough out-of-conference games anymore. The SEC has no incentive. And I think that we all need to give DeBoer his flowers for scheduling, titans of the college football landscape that he didn't have to schedule. They weren't put there for him, like Vanderbilt. Oh my God. Who could have seen that? What an admirable thing to do, to offer yourself up to slaughter for an absolute buzzsaw like Diego Pavia. That's interesting. Somehow beating Mercer and beating USF, that's a tough out-of-conference schedule, okay? And I'll tell you what, the only thing fickle about Luke is his last name, because that Wisconsin team, they got to be in the Big Ten championship, right? They scheduled it as tough as it is, didn't they? What? Why are you guys quiet? They didn't schedule it tough?
Nope.
Oh, okay. And I'm going to just say one more thing, and I'm going to pass it back to you, Donno. Do y'all think if they actually did schedule a tough out-of-conference, had they scheduled a top 10 team on one of these last weeks of the season and won, do y'all think they're in at that point? Because I do. I believe if they scheduled one of the tougher teams in the conference, if they schedule a Notre Dame and they win that game, that's a play-in game to me at that point. But we're instead talking about going the opposite direction, where it's like, we're going to schedule softer than Mercer? What are you going to do, put Cass Tech on your schedule? What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't see how they can look at it that way. They lost the games inside their conference, as you're obviously pointing out. So,
well,
come on.
I want to say something on the other side, guys. We have a lot more to get to here on Locked On ACC because I see a lot of Alabama fans and advocates they're so concerned about the message and the precedent that the committee just sent by leaving out a team with so many quality wins. Well, folks, you're not looking at the flip side because the precedent that the committee would have set by putting Bama in, to me, is far more harmful. We'll explain what we're talking about next. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, my friends, do I have a recommendation for you for your holiday gift-giving needs? I've been all over Omaha Steaks today because nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed to perfection every single bite, and right now, you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver perfect gifts with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouthwatering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. Thank you for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listens, check out our other shows. I host Locked On Canes. Brian Smith hosts Locked On Seminoles, who, by the way, despite 2-10, Brian is crushing it. And Kenton Gibbs does an awesome job on Locked On Wolfpack covering NC State. So, yeah, again, guys, I see a lot of Alabama fans, right? And listen, I get it, right? You're disappointed your team got left out. Yeah, I was very disappointed when Miami was ranked behind Alabama. We're all disappointed if you didn't get into the CFP. But I see a lot of Alabama fans and even other SEC fans that are talking about, this is this dangerous precedent that they're not rewarding the SEC schedule. You also have to look at the flip side, guys, because had the committee decided ultimately to drop SMU, to drop them below an Alabama team that was sitting at home, didn't have a game championship weekend, what kind of a message does that send? I'll tell you what kind of a message it sends. And maybe, listen, if SMU had gotten blown out, maybe they could have justified it. I get it. But it was a close, competitive finish. And maybe even if they didn't get blown out, the bottom line is if you send the message that you've got this team ranked in front of a team that's not playing in a conference championship game, and if they lose, we're going to drop them below. Guess what happens next, fellas? You're going to have teams opting out of conference championship games because why play it? Why play it if you could cost yourself a shot at the CFP? Why play the conference championship game? Now, that doesn't apply to Iowa State, who lost the Big 12 because they were already ranked below, but it would have absolutely applied to SMU. If they go into the weekend ranked in front of Alabama, Alabama doesn't play. They lose by a field goal. How do you drop them below? You might as well cancel every conference championship game moving forward because it doesn't make any sense to play in it.
Go ahead, man.
That stinks. I had to break the Febreze out because that whole strategy right there stinks. That whole idea of dropping a team for playing in the conference championship reeks to the high heavens. And I do want to say something here that's very important in terms of precedences and all that good stuff. If we're talking about, the wins are what matters. Who did you beat? Who did you beat? Who you are at your peak is what matters more than anything else. Well, why is nobody discussing Michigan being in? Does Michigan not have one of the best wins in the nation?
Yeah. They beat Ohio State on the road. Put them in, right?
Yeah. Penn State doesn't have as good of a win as Michigan. Why would Michigan not be the team to get? Oh, you're telling me
Michigan might have the best win in the country.
Hey now.
Point.
Because when Oregon beat them, Ohio State was on the road, correct? They had to go up to Austin and lose that game. So why is Michigan not considered? What did Sharon Moore do to the committee to have you all not allow him to defend his? Oh, what's that? Y'all said that there's a whole nother side of the court. Yeah, that's kind of how it works. Your season is not defined by 1 or 2 or 3 games. Those can be pivotal in defining your season. But guess what? You played 12 damn games. You played 12 of them. And you've got to go out there and prove to everybody, prove to the committee, prove to the nation, we deserve this spot because this reason. And I'm gonna take it back to the old school because maybe I'm only 29 years old, but I grew up under the BCS, baby. Back in my day, you had to win out to even be considered. And sometimes even when you won out, you weren't good enough. And so to see 3 lost teams crying, I never thought I'd see the day. I never thought I'd see the day. I got to pull out my Steve Harvey. Yeah, I'm from the old school. Y'all don't understand. Y'all crazy to him. I never thought I'd see the day that I had to go in that bag. And yet here we are. Because again, I was raised under the tradition of you go out there and dominate. You leave no doubt. And if you leave doubt, you shut up about whatever a committee, whatever a arbitrary group, whoever is getting to decide says. Guess what, Bama? Guess what, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin? Guess what, anybody else who has problems? Beat the teams in front of you. I love Deion Walker. That's my boy. I'm sure he's going to be a first rounder in next year's draft. That team was 4-8. They won 1 conference game. Who was that conference game against? Ole Miss. Huh. Billy Napier was 2 seconds away from being on this show. He was going to be my replacement. It was going to be him and Donno talking ball every day. You know how he did.
That would be awkward for me, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I love it. I think it'd be great TV. But you know why he gets to keep his job? Because he beat a team like Ole Miss. It seems to me, methinks perhaps, if you win the games that are placed in front of you, there will be no questions asked. You talk about IU didn't play anybody. Well, did IU lose to any 4-win teams, guys? I know they played some, but did they lose any? Oh, but let me guess. Kentucky would have ran through the Big Ten, right? Kentucky would have just dominated everybody because, again, the SEC, every hypothetical SEC team just is dominant. Again,
just means more.
The reality, yeah. Well, it'll just mean more in the Boca Raton Bowl. Hey, enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves, Bama. Go enjoy yourselves down there in Tampa. Have fun with Michigan. Raymond James Stadium's waiting on you. Congratulations. Because again, at the end of the day, wins, losses, they have to mean something. You are the summation of what you put out there on that field. And imagine how sweet life would be if all of us got the benefit of the doubt to the point where we were not seen as like, oh man, you messed this thing up at work. Instead, they were just like, well, you got it right sometimes. That's good enough for us. Oh, you don't got to pay rent this month. You paid rent sometimes. Donno, you don't got to pay your mortgage. You paid mortgage sometimes. So we're not going to pay attention to the times you didn't pay it. We'll just pay attention to the times you paid in the major way. That's not how life works. That's not how this committee should work. That's not how this playoff should work. And thusly, we get what we get in this situation where, again, there are a bunch of SEC teams whining and bellyaching it. And I'm being told by our boy Stephen Willis at Locked On Ole Miss, I think that SMU is on the same level as Missouri. Take that as you will. My brother in Christ, I will take it as one of those teams is in the playoffs and one of them is getting ready to learn some quick lane bowl or something. Hey, more power to you. Have fun. The Motor City's a great place to be. I'm joking. They're not actually going to the quick lane bowl, but you get my point. I don't give a damn where Missouri's going, and I love me some Coach Drake. But the reality is, again, you have to win the games that are placed in front of you.
By the way, we should have to get some of these bowl sponsorship approved by a committee because the amount of jokes that I've heard about Miami being in the Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is that bowl has a long lineage. It's actually a meaningful bowl game, but as soon as you allow Pop-Tarts to sponsor it, I mean,
it used to be Champ Sports, right? Didn't it used to be the Champ Sports Bowl, or was it the World Champion?
It started as the Blockbuster Bowl. We
love Blockbuster.
Champ Sports Bowl. I miss Blockbuster. They should have sponsored the game for longer. Maybe they'd still be around. It's been Champ Sports, Russell Athletic. It was the Cheez-It Bowl, which is also funny, and now it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. But anything else, Brian, you want to add on the committee before we move on to Bill Belichick?
No, other than they're probably going to have to figure out something. I'll let people just mow on this. The automatic bids for conference championships, especially top 4 seed considerations, how that works and all that. I mean, like Georgia, by the way, just throwing it out there, their quarterback, it's obvious he ain't playing anytime soon. And they got the 2 seed.
Yeah, where's the consistency on that? They had the Florida State got held out for having an injured quarterback last year.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but when Carson Beck walked out there to hand the ball off on that last play, did you notice his right arm looking funky? Did you notice that?
Let me tell you something. I've been to the Players Ball in Detroit, and I done seen Pimps with less of a limp than he had in that right arm right there. Okay, he clearly was not going to use that right arm for anything, which is why I'm confused as to why Texas linebackers were sitting there as if they were going to have to buzz the flats or something. My brother in Christ.
Downhill, brother. Downhill.
Downhill. Downhill. Fill a gap. I promise you, the guy that's supposed to throw it cannot throw it. It can't happen, but, lo and behold, here we are.
So, guys, are we actually, is this real life that Bill Belichick might actually end up the next coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels? Because, Kenton, we did a show about this on Friday, and the whole time I'm like, I even said it like we're talking about it because it's been in the news, but I can't believe this could really happen. They've had 3 meetings now, UNC and Belichick, and apparently the conversation that they had on Sunday was really, really long. And, the guy that I really thought North Carolina wanted, and maybe this was their top choice, John Summerall at Tulane, he's already announced he's staying at Tulane. So is Bill Belichick the top target now? And this is the most decorated NFL coach of all time, but he's about to be 73 years old, 0 college experience whatsoever. I mean, Brian, have you accepted that Bill Belichick could be a reality to UNC?
Only if Kenton gets me an autograph. That's the only way that I'll accept it. But it sounds ridiculous to me, to be honest, because I really don't think Bill wants to coach it. And I'm sure Kenton will go into this. I think there's some extra incentive for him to be the head coach for the Tar Heels.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry. The UNC lobby tried to silence me right there. Don't worry. We've done the knowledge. That's what everybody got to know about Locked On ACC. We do the knowledge here. Bill Belichick's girlfriend is trying to get her master's for free. You can't fool us, Bill. You can't fool us at Locked On ACC. We've done the knowledge. We did it. We did it, Joe. But we not only got that figured out, we also figured out the real motive, because I have never, and correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, because y'all have been around ball longer than me. Y'all have seen more coaching situations than me. But the guarantee of his son being the head coach in waiting, have you ever seen something like that written into a coach's contract ever? Ferentz is the guy at Iowa. Like he's it. He's all there will ever be. He had to fire his boy because he couldn't produce. So a situation like that, hey, I'm all for it. Tar Heels, go for it. I think it'll be great. Who can't learn how to recruit at 73? Okay? I'm sure. Have you ever been to a nursing home? Full of life, those folks. They're ready. They're bright. They're rolling. Okay? Don't let those people out on the recruiting trail. Okay? Because the first back in my day that a recruit hears when they're dancing on TikTok, they're definitely going to think, oh, yeah, Chapel Hill's the place for me.
If they end up doing this and his son is the next in line, I mean, in all seriousness, that's a really big risk. And the right coach gets the UNC job because the population of that state's growing. It's a massive state. There's a lot of – that's a team that could become an elite program. I mean, elite. Kenton, I don't want to hear, but like the easiest school in that state to win big is Carolina. It's not really that.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I wouldn't disagree with you.
But they're not handling this to the best of their ability. They're just not.
Well,
they got the biggest recruiting budget.
Yeah. Well, if I was Stephen Belichick, the son, I don't think I'd want to be in that situation. Obviously,
that's a lot of pressure.
You carry the Belichick name with you, and I'm sure that opens up a lot of doors for Stephen, and he's worked for Bill before at New England. So you already have the Belichick name. Fine, I get it. That there's a certain amount of treatment that's going to come with that. But then the idea of I've got to be and this is rumored, right? But if the scenario is true, I'm going to be the in-contract coach in waiting because my father's the coach there. That's a really awkward spot to be in because God forbid things aren't working out with senior up there, then you're going to be the most hated man in Chapel Hill if you're the son. So yeah, I wouldn't want that.
So let me just say two things. Number one, Brian, you're absolutely right. I would never deny that North Carolina is the easiest place to win at for a multitude of reasons. A multitude of reasons. You talk about their recruiting budget being bigger than everybody else's. That's just a fact. Outside of Clemson and Florida State, I believe they have the biggest recruiting budget in the ACC. How the hell are you not winning more? What are you not doing? It's flabbergasting. It's mind-blowing how they don't have a bigger NIL situation with some of the pros that they've had in basketball. Hey, guess what, buddy? Guess what? Those basketball players have guaranteed contracts, and you don't have to pay as many basketball players as you do football guys. Go ahead and pull some of that bread on back. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out for them. And beyond that, I want to make a definitive statement right now. And if I am wrong, I will happily eat crow on this. But I believe this to be wholeheartedly true. If North Carolina signs Bill Belichick, it will set their football team back 10 years, at least. At least. Because I think that you cannot undo the damage of, number one, showing that you're an unserious football program in hiring a coach that has zero. This man has been coaching for 50 years. Fun fact, he has spent more time coaching the Detroit Lions than he spent coaching college football. He was a special teams coach for a year or so, I believe. That is how different of a game this man is looking at. When he started coaching in the NFL, they barely, and when I say barely, I mean just barely, had film projectors and whatnot in the 70s when he started coaching. And we're going to say now, oh, it makes a ton of sense for him to be able to hop in an entirely different bag, not just from pro to NFL, or from pro to college, but pro to college with all of these different caveats, NIL, transfer portal, all that. Come on, man. Come on. I have literally never heard any player say, Bill Belichick did a hell of a job recruiting me. When I hear the older guys who took pay cuts to go there, they always say what? I wanted to win, and I didn't care about the money. How many players are you going to hear that from in college today? Didn't we just see a young man on signing day say, I wish I could have went to my favorite school? But we all know two things. Number one, the position coach got fired at Florida State. He couldn't.
Alma Thomas, yeah.
And number two, the bag is the bag is the bag. And that young man is from an underserved area. So again, I think that this is going to be a very deleterious moment for UNC football if it happens. As a NC State grad, I'm rooting for it to happen. Hey, Bill, go ahead and put pen to paper, okay? If you need a 5-hour energy for those meetings, I'll supply it to you. I'll drive to Chapel Hill and break you off myself. I got a good pen for you too. So, let's get pen to paper. Let's get that ink dry.
Well, we got Brian Smith from Locked On Seminoles with us. I want to talk about Florida State's transfer strategy when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're nowhere near done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. We're not done with FanDuel, guys. There's so many college games left, CFP, bowl games, NFL is, basically 2/3 through the season. Get ready to tackle all that action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get that hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with that $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Make sure you check out Locked On College Football for your next listen. Spencer McLaughlin does an awesome job taking you through all the big games, all the big storylines. All right, so Brian Smith, we know, of course, Florida State, the transfer portal has been a double-edged sword. Mike Norvell has relied on it heavily. The transfer portal helped him provide, a 13-0 start and a college football playoff snub. They should have been in a year ago. They weren't. A lot of portal players again this season, 2-10. So what's the strategy this time around, Brian? And are there any big names? Let's start at the quarterback position, because I've seen a handful of quarterbacks who are going to be visiting FSU this week.
There's all kinds of possibilities, but Thomas Castellanos and Caden Salter. Of course, Castellanos was with UCF and Gus at one point. Now he's the OC for Florida State, but he was also at BC. That didn't work out there. He's going to visit. He's got other schools as a possibility. And then Caden Salter, the kid that was at Liberty, I mean, he's a great deep ball thrower, another twitchy kid that can run. Those are the two kids that I'm most curious about because, let's be honest, quarterbacks run the show, whether we want them to or not. I know Kenton's not a big fan of quarterbacks, but I'll speak for him on that. But you got to have them. You're not going to win. And they're in a bad spot because their starting quarterback right now is true freshman. Even true sophomores, especially with the consideration for what I consider to be the worst FBS offensive line I can remember at a major program in my lifetime, they need a mobile quarterback. So they need to get one of those guys. And I think they'll still take another 17 or 18 guys from the portal. And I'm just curious to see your guys look when I say this, but I mean the following in all sincerity. A low number for what they need out of the offensive line group is 4 out of the portal. Low, because most of the guys they had were seniors, 50 years, and 60-year seniors.
Ooh, on that line?
That's why, I mean, they regressed.
Yeah.
It is bizarre. Yeah, I mean, go look at it's so bad it's comical. So minimum, they're going to need 4 guys. I'm not saying they'll all start. There's a couple of younger guys that might. Jalen Early's a good player, et cetera, but they're just not in a good spot. It is the worst O-line depth chart in major college football. That's unbelievable that it's at Florida State, but that's the biggest problem. They need at least 2 receivers. Their best receiver, Ja'Kai Douglas, is gone. Jackson West has hit the portal. He's a tight end. It was a backup. They got some young guys there, but receiver, like who's their stud receiver? Nobody do. I mean, they're in a lot of weird spots. So every position from quarterback on down, they got to take somebody. 20 is kind of the number, I think, overall is where they'll get. And that's if they don't have any surprises bolting. Every position needs something. Joshua Farmer and Daryl Jackson are in the draft. They both put their name in. So both their D tackles. I mean, there's a lot of holes to fill, brother. And it looks like based on they've done a really good job with the coaching search so far.
Yeah.
They're putting money in that. But how much money do they have for NIL now? I don't know the answer. But let's be honest. How many kids want to join a program that just went 2-10?
Yeah.
That's rough. Now, they're going to get a few of the Nebraska kids from what I'm hearing. That's good news.
Oh, yeah, because the DC, yeah.
Yeah, the DC and the D-line coach are coming, and one of the safety coach is coming, et cetera. They're in a pretty – by the way, Nebraska's in trouble. That's a little side note here. That's not good news for the Huskers. That defense staff's pretty good considering what they had to work with.
Oh, no. Matt Rule is in trouble? What a shock. What a twist.
I know you live in North Carolina and you're shocked by that, Kenton, but whatever.
What a surprise.
But at the same time, again, it's still the O-line and the offense. Like, where are the playmakers at receiver? Running back is the one spot if they didn't take anybody. I mean, they got Cam Davis, Makai Danzy, Sam Singleton. They got some young talent. They'd be okay. Mm-hmm. But even there, I wouldn't mind them taking an H-back or a fullback. So this team needs an overhaul. Will the NIL money be there? Because I think they're going to have to overpay to get some of the guys they want. Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that, but again, 2-10.
So let's say for kicks and giggles, before we get out of here, Florida State does overpay. They reach in their pockets. They find it, some private equity firms say, hey, take 20 million. Whatever. We don't care where the money comes from. They get the money. What do you think is the best case scenario for Florida State next season? If they get their wish list players, not all of them, but a couple, paired in with some solid guys out of the portal, mixed in with this coaching staff, what do you see as like their best case scenario for next year, just to get Florida State fans ready and level set a little bit here?
I mean, if they won every close game, maybe 8-4, but I think it's more likely they're 4-8 than they are 8-4, because you don't know who your quarterback's going to be. You have the worst O-line in college football at the major level. And you're going to have a complete defensive staff turnover pretty much. I mean, Surtain's still going to stay at corner coach. He's legit. But you still don't have a receiver coach yet. Linebacker coach situation's not settled. There's so many question marks. And you're going to be changing scheme, etc. Like, this is massive. I mean, your offense coordinator is totally different scheme. Gus runs a totally different deal than what Norvell does, even though they work together at Tulsa. Because Gus, way back in the day, hired Norvell at Tulsa. That's the connection. And that's great. But they don't run the same thing. So there's a million questions. Oh, by the way, they start with Bama next year.
Oh. Well, that's the easy non-conference Bama wanted. It starts week 1.
I mean,
oh boy!
If you talk, you know how these games get scheduled way ahead. 6 years ago, you're like, that'll probably be a pretty good game.
Yeah. Well, even a year ago, you would have thought that'd be a really good game.
Yeah.
Not even 6 years ago.
But now it's
a year ago. You would have thought Florida State is going to stump a mud hole in them boys. Oh, this is going to be Bama's over party, and lo and behold, yeesh.
So I think they could win. I think a realistic number is between 4 and 7 wins. Like, everything falls in place 8, but I think that's like a 2% chance. Making a bowl should be the objective. Yeah, that's just reality.
Well, we appreciate the all the insight from Brian Smith. You want to make sure you check him out at Locked On Seminoles. Of course, make sure you check Kenton out, not only here, but on Locked On Wolfpack. Check me out at Locked On Canes. And we'll talk to everyone tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Bill Belichick is your man.